how all of those aircraft would interact with commercial aircraft, prompting the FAA, out of an abundance of caution, to halt all flights under 18,000 feet.
The Pentagon says the drones have been disabled. The El Paso airport is just across the border from Juarez, Mexico. A man investigators called a person of interest in Nancy Guthrie's kidnapping has been released after he was detained at a traffic stop south of Tucson.
They just told me to stop moving. Like, what's your name? Carlos. And that's it. They put me in the cop car. I got to wait like 2 hours. I waited like 2 hours until the detectives came here and everything.
It happened hours after the FBI released surveillance images of a masked person with a handgun holster outside Guthrie's door in Tucson. She's been missing for a week and a half now. The job market stronger than expected in January.
The Labor Department says the unemployment rate fell to 4.3% as employers added 130,000 jobs last month. Wall Street was only expecting 50,000.
This is a very healthy labor market overall.
Joseph Quinlan, the head of market strategy at Bank of America, was happy to see more people jumping back into the labor market because companies everywhere are looking for workers.
Good job growth, a lot of demand. So this is a very good story for the underlying economy heading deeper into 2026.
Michael Wallace, CBS News.
A big brewer is planning layoffs.
Heineken will cut up to 6,000 jobs, 7% of its workforce, over the next 2 years because of an industry-wide drop in demand for beer caused by rising prices and consumers moderating their alcohol consumption. The Dutch brewer says beer sales were down last year in critical markets, including Europe and the U.S.
CBS's Jim Crisula reporting. Lots of Seahawks fans will be calling out sick. Seattle is throwing a parade for its Super Bowl champs this morning. Lauren Ozick will be among them.
I told my manager, though, way before we even went to the Super Bowl, I said if we win, I'm not coming in on whatever day the parade follows.
The city estimates as many as 1 million fans could show up for the parade today. The Dow is up 119 points. This is CBS News.
Bonus.
An Olympic athlete comes clean on camera.
Sturla Holm Leigrid of Norway, after winning bronze in the men's biathlon, tearfully admitted to being unfaithful to his girlfriend. He called it the biggest mistake of his life. He says he revealed it publicly in a bid to win her back. Critics said it overshadowed a teammate's win in the event. Leigrid apologized for that and says he regrets speaking up. His girlfriend, who remains anonymous, expressed her pain and reluctance to forgive. Steve Kathan, CBS News.
Casting controversy resolved.
Have you ever thought about what you're doing to me?
Marty Supreme's Odessa Azayan has been replaced in the movie Deep Cuts by Last of Us actress Aurelia Bearer. Azayan dropped out after social media backlash. Post said it wasn't right.
This is Bloomberg Intelligence with Scarlett Fu and Paul Sweeney.
How do you think the Fed is looking at tariffs, the uncertainty of tariffs?
Let's take a look at the sectors and how they performed.
A lot of investors getting whipsawed every day by news events.
Breaking market headlines and corporate news from across the globe.
Could we see a market disruption, a market event?
Are people just too exuberant out there?
You see some so-called low-quality stocks driving this short-term rally.
Bloomberg Intelligence with Scarlett Fu and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio, YouTube, and Bloomberg Originals.
Good Wednesday morning from the Bloomberg Interactive Broker Studio in New York City to our worldwide audience. We're streaming live on YouTube.com. We're also streaming live now on Bloomberg.com/videos. You can find all of the live radio and TV video there, as well as all the curated videos. That's the place to go for you. It is a busy jobs morning. Better than expected jobs report. We're going to break that down with Ira Jersey, Bloomberg Intelligence Chief U.S. Interest Rate Strategist. We'll get his thoughts there. Carol Pepper, founder and CEO of Pepper International. We'll get her thoughts on the markets going forward. Kevin Tynan, Director of Research at Presidio Group. He's going to recap those Ford earnings, taking more charges on the EV business. Brian Egger, Bloomberg Intelligence Senior Gaming Analyst, is going to talk to us about Hilton Hotels. They reported some earnings, so we'll get some news on the Hilton numbers and what it means for the greater hospitality space here. So it's Scarlett Fu, it's Paul Sweeney. We are live here, and we are with the Bloomberg Intelligence program for the next 2 hours, of which we're going to kick off right now with John Tucker. John.
All right, the Dow Jones Industrial Average adding to its record close. This Bloomberg Business Flash brought to you by IBK. Our financial advisors switch to Interactive Brokers, lowest cost global trading and turnkey custody solutions. No ticket charges, no conflicts of your interest. Learn more at ibkr.com/RIA. You got to get used to this. The Dow over 50,000, 50,239. 50 points higher. That is up about 0.1%. The S&P 500 hovering near a record. 7 of the 11 major industry groups in the S&P 500 higher. We're being led by energy, industrials, materials, all the stuff that does well when the economy is doing well. I have to take a look at Mattel. That's one of the standouts, and not for the good reason. Mattel taking it on the chin. It's actually set up for the biggest decline on record. Oof. The holiday quarter missing earnings and revenue. Remember, they sell toys. It was the holiday season. Still, the major stock averages all higher. After the January jobs report, it came in much better than expected. Treasury yields, they're pushing higher. The idea that there's less reason for the Fed to cut rates. The 2-year 6 basis points higher at 351. 10-year up 3. That's at 417. Meantime, Claudia Sam at New Century Advisors says the adjustments we got, that adjustment showed job growth was nearly 900,000 lower in the 12 months through March 2025 than initially reported. She focused on that.
There's something here for us to understand about what exactly is happening with job creation, and how comforted should we be by the latest numbers? Have we turned the corner, or is that just an aberration and we're going to get back into these really low numbers?
Once again, the Dow up 32 points right now. S&P 500 11 points higher than NASDAQ 100, up 59. Another retail comeback. Five Below. The story there, it's doing so by ramping up marketing to tweens and teens.
I thought that's what they always focused on.
Or
tweens as parents.
I don't even know what that is. The discount retailer leaning into licensed products. It's capitalized on viral trends from Dubai chocolate to K-pop demon hunters. Again, I have no idea what those are. Anyway, we check the markets for you all day long, right here on Bloomberg Radio. I'm John Tucker. That's your Bloomberg Business Flash, Scarlett and Paul.
All right, John Tucker, thank you so much. We appreciate that. Scarlett Fu, Paul Sweeney live here in our Bloomberg Interactive Broker Studio, streaming live on YouTube and Bloomberg.com/videos, and that's where you'll find us. Let's take a look at some of the stocks on the move. Today we're joined by Bloomberg's Tatiana Darie. Tatiana, what are you looking at today?
Looking at Kraft Heinz, those shares are down about 1.5%, pairing a steeper drop from earlier after surprising plans to halt the split in two. That's a reversal from weeks after bringing in a CEO with experience to break up a food company. So Steve Cahilan took over on January 1st, said he made the decision to temporarily hold the breakup of the company to concentrate on bolstering profitability. Remember, the plan was to separate the company's fastest growing brands from the slower growing brands, and that breakup was essentially intended to undo Kraft Heinz $46 billion mega merger from a decade ago. Warren Buffett really championed that one, but has since also expressed disappointed because since then shares have fallen by about 2/3. So just last month, Berkshire Hathaway said they're seeking to sell their 28% stake in the packaged food company, and shares here have not been doing really well. So to investors, there's real confusion about this reversal right now.
But maybe the reversal also helps keep Berkshire Hathaway around. Who knows? What's the second stock you're watching?
Looking at Lyft, also shares down 15% after a disappointed forecast that missed Wall Street expectations and fourth quarter revenue coming in below estimates. The market is taking this basically as a sign that the company's global expansion and new product offerings are just not performing as quickly as anticipated. And to a lot of the analysts, Waymo's aggressive expansion continues to be the cause of that. We've also seen some of those cracks in Uber earnings, and analysts here are saying that this partnership with robo-taxis will take years to grow and become profitable for the ride-sharing companies like Uber and Lyft. And even a forecast from Bloomberg here saying that robo-taxis will double this year. So real competition there for Lyft and Uber. And really the stock here is back to where it was a year ago, basically flat, undoing some of those earlier
All right,
gains
yesterday
this
I
year.
took a ride share for a variety of New Jersey transit issues. So I go to Uber, boom, $32. I say, okay, I'll go to Lyft, $25.
See?
Boom.
Yeah.
I take the Lyft.
Done.
And if you have a credit card like the Chase Sapphire card, sometimes you can get credits with that too.
So I don't get that whole model there. But
wait, $25 to go from Manhattan to
Long Branch.
Oh, so okay.
He said a variety of New Jersey transit
Yeah, so we're
issues.
just New Jersey and I were just working it out here over the last couple of days.
It's complicated.
All right, one more.
All right, so at the end, it's Ford. Shares are pairing those gains actually about flat right now. They earlier reported an unexpected profit jump for 2026, even after being hit by a surprise $900 million tariff bill, because the Trump administration said the company could only apply a measure to trim tariffs paid on imported auto parts dating back to November rather than May. It looks like the market is sort of reassessing this report right now. Adjusted EBITDA seen climbing by about $10 billion in 2026. That is supposed to reverse a decline from last year. But really what stands out in this report is the focus on cost, that the company is seen as finally getting a handle on those costs. A lot of those issues stem from the fire at their aluminum plant. So now they're going to face those higher costs. And earlier, analysts said that this report is overall good, will add to momentum to a stock that's been gaining 49%. So it has a lot of tailwinds there coming from the rollback in emissions, coming back perhaps in consumer demand later this year. At the same time, cost really weighing on this company right now.
All right, Tatiana Darrier, strategist for Markets Live, joining us with our market drivers. And for more conversations like this, subscribe to our Stock Movers Reports, 5-minute audio reports available on the biggest winners and losers in the stock market. That is available to you on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere you listen. All right, we had a jobs report. It's weird that it's Wednesday and we had a jobs report, but the government shutdown, partial government shutdown, meant that data points were delayed, and the jobs report was a big one. And there's some big changes, too, not just to what we saw for December, but for the previous 12 months leading to March. Ira Jersey is our Bloomberg Intelligence chief U.S. interest rate strategist. And Ira, there's a lot to unpack here. Let's just start with the January jobs numbers, which was a blowout compared to what economists were anticipating. And the bond market is reacting very decidedly by pushing yields higher, bond prices down, yields higher. We're looking at 130,000 jobs added in the month of January. How did everyone miss this?
Well, I think people didn't know how many healthcare people would have to be hired, because almost all of that came from the healthcare sector. 124,000 new jobs in the healthcare sector, which had been running more or less at 50 or 60,000, right? So a lot of this big miss was all from one sector. And the interesting thing about that sector, Scarlett, and this is, just to preview a little bit what I'm working on right now and we'll put out tomorrow morning, is that is actually the lowest paid sector within all of the major sectors within the economy. And one of the reasons is that it's not doctors and nurses that are included in that. That's actually a very small part of it, but it's home care workers and people who work in assisted living facilities and the like that are there, and they tend to have somewhat lower wages, and also their wages are growing very slowly. So I'm not sure that this is necessarily like this blowout jobs report, and I think that the market kind of gets that joke too, right? 6 basis points in the 2-year yield is basically saying that's a quarter of an interest rate cut over the course of the next 2 years. It's not nothing, but it's also not a massive move here.
We're going to hear about inflation on Friday. So how do you think that, you sit there, you put yourself in the Fed's chair midday Friday. How do you think they're viewing kind of what they need to do as a next step?
Yeah, I think the inflation story is going to be really interesting because you still have a little bit of tariff hangover, and so the goods sector could still be contributing a little bit to inflation being pretty sticky. But I think that some of the important information that we're going to get is how are services being affected by all of these things? Because if you look at the wage gains from today's jobs report, it does suggest that in January you had actually reasonably good wage growth. There's not a lot of hiring in some of those higher income services sectors, like I was mentioning before, but there were wage gains in those sectors. So basically, the people who have jobs are getting decent bumps in their paycheck, and that should keep services inflation relatively high. So it becomes a challenge for the Fed to cut interest rates if you wind up with something above a 2.5%, CPI on a sustained basis. So I do think that, they're going to be focused on some of those details. Not only, do we get a 2.6 or 2.7, but what is the distribution of the price increases that we get within the CPI report?
Very quickly, Ira. So it's appropriate then that the first Fed rate cut is priced for July?
Yeah, we'd been thinking that they would wait until probably the second half of this year to cut interest rates, but then once they do, we think that there'll be a series of cuts. So that they might cut 75 basis points. Certainly, today's jobs numbers make us a little bit more skeptical that they'll go as quickly as we think. But I think as a base case, the potential for slower jobs growth, somewhat slower wage growth going forward, and that's the catalyst. It has to be the catalyst probably for the Fed to cut rates again the second half of this year.
All right, good stuff. Ira Jersey, Bloomberg Intelligence Chief U.S. Interest Rate Strategist on this January jobs report. It was a blowout if you just look at the numbers, but perhaps, as he mentioned, you look at the kinds of jobs and the quality of the jobs and the wage gains, and it tells a different story. It's always very nuanced when you look at the jobs market and the labor economy overall. This is Bloomberg.
markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, Bloomberg Television, and the Bloomberg Business app. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
And I'm John Tucker in the Bloomberg Newsroom with this Bloomberg Business Flash. Let me start off with more Fed speak that we just got. The Federal Reserve Bank of Kansas City president, this is Jeff Schmidt, saying the central bank should hold rates at his words, somewhat restrictive level because of concerns over inflation that he says remain too high at this point. Now, the major stock averages, what a whipsaw. They've all turned lower right now. The jobs report today showing employers adding 130,000 jobs last month, way more than expected. But as Ira Jersey just pointed out, a lot of that was due to increased health care workers, which are lower paid. Still, it did push rates higher on the idea there's less reason for the Federal Reserve to cut. So you go to the more policy reactive 2-year, 5 basis points higher right now, 350, the 10s. Up 2 at 416, and the long bond just 1 basis point higher. That is right at, I'll call it 480 at this point. The laggards in the Dow right now include Salesforce, IBM, and Microsoft. And the worst performing stock in the S&P 500, down close to 13%. That belongs to Robinhood Markets, the fintech company reporting net revenue for the fourth quarter. Missed estimates as crypto volumes they declined. And we check the markets for you all day long right here on Bloomberg Radio. I'm John Tucker, and that's your Bloomberg Business Flash. Scarlett.
All right. Thank you so much, John Tucker, for that. It is earnings season right now, and one of the most anticipated set of results that came out today came from Kraft Heinz, mainly because the food company had been on this mission to split itself up into two in order to really free up its faster-growing business from its slower-growing business. Christina Peterson is our food industry reporter and has been reporting on Kraft Heinz. And Christina, the new CEO over at Kraft Heinz surprised everyone by saying, you know what, I'm not going to split up the company. What's the thinking here?
That's right. He's only been on the job since January 1st, so I think this came as a surprise to folks that the split was called off about 5 months after it was announced, or paused. There is no end date to the pause, so we don't know if it will at some point resume. But the CEO, Steve Cahillane, said that he came on the job knowing that there had been levels of underinvestment in Kraft Heinz's brands, and decided that after reviewing all of them, that there were brands that would respond to more investment. So they announced that they would be putting $600 million into things like R&D, marketing, and lowering some prices in hopes that that would bolster the entire company and that would be in a better position, put them in a better position to evaluate whether they should move forward with the split.
So what do most investors want? Do you think they want the split up? Sometimes split ups work. A lot of times they don't. What have investors been saying over the past months?
There's clearly been some anxiety among investors since the news of the split was announced. I think that the new CEO was seen as there were hopes that he would do what he had done with the Kellogg Company, which split into two publicly traded entities, and then were both of those companies were bought by privately held entities. So there was some speculation that the same thing would occur at Kraft Heinz, and Cahillane said basically not yet.
Really?
There's another twist to all of this, which is that Kraft Heinz's biggest shareholder is Berkshire Hathaway. And Warren Buffett, who runs Berkshire Hathaway until he handed the reins to Greg Abel, said he was never a fan of that idea to split up the company. I mean, he was kind of the mastermind behind Kraft Heinz becoming the behemoth it was, and that didn't work out so well. But he made clear that the split was not a good thing in his mind. Do we think that has anything to do with this about face?
I don't know. It is clear that he had publicly expressed disappointment in the split, and his successor had said in a filing that Berkshire Hathaway was taking steps to sell its 28% stake in Kraft Heinz. So clearly they were nervous about this and not fans of the news.
So do we have any idea how long this pause will last? I mean, is he trying to turn stuff around, make it maybe better, so if when they do split it up, it will be worth more? What do we know?
They clearly are not going to make the decision this year. They talked about returning to growth in 2027, so it seems like this is a months away decision.
Oh, the investment bankers who had that on their deal sheet for 2026.
But they get paid in the meantime for the work that they've done, right?
Nah, you don't get paid until it closes.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You can't bill them along the way like
No, we're
lawyers?
not lawyers. Okay, we get paid.
Oh,
We take a cut of the.
I like how you still say we.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you feel for these guys.
Yeah. What's next for Kellogg? What's the company want to do now as a standalone company?
For Kraft Heinz?
Yeah.
Well, they've talked about releasing some healthier products. They are launching a Kraft Heinz mac and cheese Power Mac with protein and fiber.
I knew it.
And they will be lowering prices. They talked about the opening price points being important for low-income families. So those are some of the areas that they're going to be focusing on, some healthier options, more affordable price points.
So Kellogg was the example of a company that split into two and then both got taken private. I mean, is that a trend overall in the food industry to split yourself up after being kind of a big overall food company?
You know, I think we're seeing examples of both, of companies getting smaller and bigger. There's obviously a lot more criticism and focus on ultra-processed foods. Packaged food companies are dealing with this. We saw the Super Bowl ad this weekend saying processed food kills. So I think big food, generally speaking, is trying to figure out what to do with these headwinds.
So what is the story there? Is this a short-term blip, this whole processed food thing? Or has this been brewing? Because I hear more and more and more about that being a cause for so many of the ills in healthcare and in people's health.
I think this is the first time we've seen an administration come down so harshly on ultra-processed food. That's clearly been a huge focus of Health Secretary Kennedy, and the White House has backed him up on this. Of course, Americans don't always eat the way they say they want to eat. So, you know, there's plenty of Doritos still being eaten, even as people say they're trying to move away from processed foods.
All right, good stuff. Christina, really appreciate your joining us for this latest story. It's a fascinating one, especially since Kraft Heinz shares had been slumping, because of 9 straight quarters of falling sales. But now they're kind of unchanged as people try to figure out what this all means. Thank you so much, Christina Peterson, our food industry reporter. Let's shift gears and talk about the markets overall. Carol Pepper, she is founder and CEO at Pepper International, joins us now. And Carol, I have a question for you about why it is that initially we got this better than expected jobs report that definitely sent treasuries